Good Shabbos, everyone. It's been difficult, I know, for all of us over the last 2 weeks to watch TV, to see the news. It's been frightening and depressing to see what Volodymyr Putin and the Russian army are doing to the innocent civilians and people of Ukraine. Russia's unjustified invasion of Ukraine has been difficult for all of us as freedom-loving Americans. But there's one aspect of the horror that we've been watching on our TVs over the last 2 weeks that we can take pride in. And that's the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky. His rise to the presidency was truly unbelievable. Before being elected president, Zelensky was a popular entertainer and comedian in his home country. He created and starred in a comedy series called Servant of the People. And in the show, his character, a high school history teacher, is secretly recorded by one of his students as he passionately rants against the tyranny of corruption in his nation. He's fed up with corrupt politicians who become presidents. Without his knowledge, in the show, that video goes viral. And without campaigning or even wanting the job, the teacher is improbably elected president of Ukraine. And in the show, the humble everyman, out of his depths in nearly every respect, goes on to become a heroic leader of his country. It's a role that foretold his actual ascendance to the presidency. He was so beloved by being that character in that show that in 2019, he was actually in real life elected in a landslide. Defeating the incumbent president was 73% of the vote. And like his TV character, his real-life supporters, frustrated with establishment politicians, were energized by his genuine charisma and anti-corruption message. I love what he told his people after his election victory in 2019. He said, I don't want my picture in your offices. The president is not an icon, an idol, or a portrait. Instead, hang your kids' photos and look at them each time you're making a decision. Before 2 weeks ago, Zelensky was already leading his country out of a deep sense of patriotism and a true desire to help his fellow citizens. He was succeeding in helping Ukraine, a young democracy, just 30 years old, becoming even more diverse, more tolerant, and even more committed to becoming and establishing itself as a democracy. He was already becoming the type of leader we could all use. And as you probably know, Zelensky is also Jewish. His 3 great uncles were murdered in the Holocaust. He speaks proudly about his grandfather, who survived the Holocaust by fighting against the Nazis. He's also pro-Israel and has spoken and visited the Jewish state and spoken proudly of the state of Israel. All of this makes Putin's claim that his number one purpose of invading was to denazify Ukraine one of the most hilarious comments we've heard in a while. My friends, looking at Ukrainian history, it's truly mind-blowing that Zelensky's Jewishness has not stood in the way of his being embraced as the leader and symbol of the Ukrainian people. Since the late Middle Ages, Ukraine has been a place where a particularly virulent strain of anti-Semitism had always existed, a legacy of Cossack pogroms and Nazi collaboration. Dating back to the 1600s, it was not a friendly place for our people to live. During the Holocaust, you look at all the countries of Eastern Europe and put them on a scale of the atrocities committed against our people during those difficult years, Ukraine was the most brutal. And so it's incredible that Zelensky, a Jew, has now become synonymous with the blue and yellow flag of his country. The Ukrainian Jewish community today, the 5th largest Jewish community in the entire world, which according to some estimates numbers over 200,000, finally feeling with his election, improbably, one with a land that has perpetually tried to spit them out. Zelensky has represented inclusion and acceptance in a place where it once seemed impossible. And as Gal Beckerman, the senior editor of The Atlantic, wrote this week, in these days of war and uncertainty, the fact that a Jew has come to represent the fighting spirit of Ukraine provides its own kind of hope. Since the Russian invasion began, President Zelensky has acted heroically, organizing the homeland defense, lobbying foreign countries for support, calming his population with well-delivered patriotic speeches, and demonstrating that he has no intention of fleeing. Zelensky last week told a video conference of European leaders that he would likely never see them again in person. What reason do we have to doubt that Vladimir Putin has ordered his murder, as the Russian leader has done with so many of his bravest critics and enemies? Zelensky's fate is so clear that Washington offered to rescue him so that he could form a government in exile. But Zelensky, I love, swatted away that promise of safety. He responded, "The fight is here. I need ammunition, not a ride." One morning last week, after Russian missiles rained down on Kyiv, he addressed the nation in a selfie video on Instagram. He said, "Good morning to all Ukrainians," standing outside a famous downtown landmark. He said, "Lately there's been a lot of fake information online that I'm calling on our army to lay down their arms and to evacuate. None of that is true. Listen, I am here." Thousands of years ago, our biblical patriarch Abraham recited emotionally to God, Hineni, "Here I am," the ultimate expression of Jewish responsibility. And now a Jewish president, the only one in the world outside of the state of Israel, in the midst of a brutal war, uttering a similar message, Hineni, I am here, I am not leaving. And he's been a leader who has joined his fate with that of his countrymen on the dangerous streets of Kyiv, risking his own life and that of his family to stay with his people. In our Torah portion this week, Aaron and the other priests are told to inscribe on their headdress the words, Kodesh Ladonai, holy to the Lord. Think about that for just a moment. Our ancestors, the holiest leaders of all at the time, wrote on their headdress for all to see and to remind themselves the words, holy to the Lord. My colleague, Rabbi Michael Barclay, reminds us that by keeping this reminder on their headdress, Aaron and his descendants would always remember their true purpose as leaders of the people, that they are servants of God and their people. Wouldn't it be great if all of our leaders today kept a reminder of their purpose in front of them, that their jobs are to serve and guide the people, not be dictatorial authoritarians consumed in their own glory? That by choosing leadership, by choosing to be elected by their people, they should be choosing to serve God and their people, not themselves. That in many ways, they should be like Volodymyr Zelensky, holy to the Lord, holy to his people, by standing firm, resolute, committed, by risking his own life to stand with his people in this most dangerous of times. And by doing so, Zelensky is living by the values and responsibilities of courage and bravery, genuine commitment, and service to others. In so many ways, he's living by Jewish values that have been with our people for eternity. He said in an interview in 2020 that he grew up in an ordinary Soviet Jewish family, that he sees himself as just an ordinary Jew. As we pray for his well-being, we can marvel at how this ordinary Jew, this comedian, has now shown his courageous face to the world. And by staying and guiding his people in the fight of their lives, in the fight perhaps of our lives, he's living out Jewish values. In so many ways, he's speaking to you and me. Located inside Kyiv is Babi Yar, one of the most important monuments and one of the most devastating sites of the Holocaust. At Babi Yar, inside Kyiv, Ukraine, 33,000 Jews were shot and thrown into a ravine over the course of just 2 days in 1941. A Holocaust memorial stands at that spot to commemorate our murdered ancestors. But this week, a Russian missile strike killed at least 5 people nearby and damaged that memorial. Hours after the strike, Zelensky tweeted for the world to see. To the world, he wrote, "What is the point of saying never again for 80 years if the world stands silent when a bomb drops on the same site of Babi Yar?" At least 5 killed. History repeating. And later on Tuesday, he wrote, "I am now addressing all the Jews of the world. Don't you see what is happening? That is why it is very important that millions of Jews around the world not remain silent right now. Nazism is born in silence. So shout out about killings of civilians. Shout out about the murder of Ukrainians." Shabbat Shalom.